state has the burden of proof, they get to go first. Jill, begin your opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honor. Use your projector. Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a case about Stanley Freeman Jr. Happy was murdered on February 12, 2021. Stanley Freeman, this is not a case, ladies and gentlemen, that Mr. Freeman was at a place he shouldn't have been, wrong time, wrong place, hanging out with the wrong people. No. Mr. Freeman was doing exactly what we want 16-year-olds to do, and that is he was attending school on February 12th. He was leaving school, rushing to get to his car so he could rush to get home, so he could change, so he could make it to his job at McDonald's on Cumberland Avenue by 4 o'clock. Now I know as adults you're thinking to yourself, well, if it was me, I would have just taken my clothes to school and changed there. He's 16. Right? I could make it home, done it before, not a big deal. Mr. Freeman has a very loving family. Dad, grandma, brothers, sisters, cousins. He loved basketball. He loved his car. It's going to be a Honda Accord. And that's probably what drew the attention of the defendants to his car. It's about the type of car he had. And his dad had gotten that car, and the rule was you had to maintain good grades if you were going to keep that car. And Stanley, unfortunately, he was struggling a little bit in math. And he had missed an assignment the day before on February 11th. And so he was at school, and in 4th block, that's the last period, he was asking his teacher for some, if he could make up that work. Now, Stanley Freeman, he attended Austin East High School. Austin East High School is located, we'll have a better map here, but it's going to be located right in there. And behind Austin East is a baseball field called Claude Walker Field. And Austin East is situated on Martin Luther King Boulevard. Across from Austin East is Jarnigan's Mortuary. Now, Jarnigan's is an African-American business that's been in the neighborhood forever. And they are really nice about letting students park in their parking lot across the street. So you got Martin Luther King that runs in front of Austin East. You've got Hembry Street that runs on the side. And on the other side, you're going to have Elmwood that's going to connect from MLK down to the baseball field. So Austin East is just a sign of times. Austin East is equipped with a number of cameras. That's just the day and age that we're in. And so those cameras are not only internally, but they also shoot outside. Mr. Freeman, after talking to his teacher, finding out about whether or not he could make up that assignment, had to get out of school because he had to go to work. And so Mr. Freeman rushes out of school, he's in a hurry, and he's running out of school with his black hoodie, black t-shirt, blue jeans, ripped, stylish, and his red shoes. And he's running across right there, still right there, still running. And so what he's doing is he's running across the street because his car is parked here in the parking lot. And so he gets to his car, he pulls out onto MLK, and he is pulling down Hembry. And so what he doesn't realize is that the car in front of him is a blue Altima. And that blue Altima is driven by DeAndre Davis. And in the car is going to be Rashawn Jordan. Now we know that the blue Altima is driven by DeAndre Davis because a young man who you will not meet, but who testified in juvenile court under oath, identified DeAndre Davis as being black. His name is Jeremy Knox. Jeremy Hines is friends with DeAndre Davis. Jeremy Hines is friends with Sean Wood. And Jeremy Hines is friends with Sam. So, Mr. Freeman is behind this blue Altima. What Mr. Freeman did not know is that while Mr. Freeman was in class, trying to get that extra work in math class, the blue Altima is driving around the school, up and down Elmwood, near the park. And there had to be some type of dispute with another Honda Accord, because captured on the video is going to be this blue Altima, and right behind the blue Altima is a Honda Accord. And this Honda Accord, what you'll notice from the video is the front passenger leans out of the vehicle, sits up on the windowsill of the front passenger seat, and leans over the top of the car. Now, this is not Mr. Freeman's Honda Accord. We know because Mr. Freeman's in school. Not only that, this car here has some damage to it, but it also has rims. And Mr. Freeman's car didn't have rims, it didn't have that damage. So this Honda Accord turns around and heads back to Elmwood. So Mr. Freeman is sitting here in traffic. Mr. Jordan and Mr. Davis, they're in this blue Altima. Some of their friends come up, holding up traffic a little bit. I don't know what happens, but something happens to draw their attention to Mr. Freeman's car. Because at 3:38, as Mr. Freeman follows behind and is turning down Tarleton, he encounters the Altima, and Mr. Davis and Mr. Jordan are bullets strike Mr. Freeman's car. Strikes the hood, front passenger door, front passenger window, back passenger window twice, and the last shot strikes the front of his car. And that bullet travels through the trunk, through the back seat, through the driver's seat, entering his body and exiting into the road. Mr. Freeman is rushing away, trying to outrun those bullets. He is unable to, but he continues on down Tarleton. And a neighbor's ring camera captures his car speeding by. Mr. Jordan and Mr. Davis, after firing their guns, have left 45 caliber casings at the scene and 7.62 casings at the scene. They continue on down Tarleton, turn up Houston, cross over Magnolia, and park that blue Altima at 2055 Washington. And that's going to be in an alley behind an apartment complex. They exited that car and get into another car and drop off. Now, because of the gunfire, there are a couple of phone calls that are made to 911. One phone call is made on Tarleton, reporting the gunfire. Mr. Freeman has sped down Tarleton, trying to get home, turns down, and then he ends up turning down Wilson. But he's been struck. He is bleeding out, and his car ends up crashing into another car right in this area. And when he does, his car rolls over to on the side. Mr. Freeman's arm is extended from the car. And so what happens is the car owner, all they know is they hear a crash. And so they come out, and again, this day and age, they come out with their video, their phone, and starts recording this image. But she also calls 911. But in recording this image, she puts it up on social media. And so social media, it's broadcasted, this crash scene, with Mr. Freeman's arm extended out of the car. Mr. Freeman's still alive, and his arm is moving. And this is all captured on social media. She has made the call to 911, and so at this point in time, you've got two crime scenes, right? You've got Tarleton, where all the casings are, and then you got this crash scene here. So the police, they show up first at this scene, and officers try to render aid to Mr. Freeman, but to no avail. But the fire department, they show up, and they're able to use the axe to cut the windshield out of the car, and they get Mr. Freeman out of the car, leaving his one red shoe in the car. They get him out, they place him on the roadway and try to render aid to him, and here you see his blue jeans, his black shirt, and his black sweatshirt. So they cut his clothing off, they take him to the hospital to try to give him some aid. Forensic techs, they respond to the scene and they process the car there. They end up having the car towed to the garage so that they can process it more to look at all of these bullet holes. Another forensic tech responds to Tarleton, and they collect casings there at Tarleton. Now, the forensic techs that respond to Tarleton, what they find is one .380 casing, and they find multiple 9mm casings. And based upon the condition of those casings, they didn't think it was part of this crime scene. It looked like they had been involved, but they collected them. But they also collected 9 .45 caliber casings and 7 .762 casings. And the location of those casings will be in this area here. So it's going to be the purple and the green. And so they take all of these casings back to the police department for the firearms examiner to examine those casings. So what we're looking at here is going to be these purple casings are the 7.62 casings, and the greens will be the 45s. So the forensic officer collects these casings and takes these casings back to KPD. And so Brian Dalton, he is a firearms expert with the Knoxville Police Department. He examines these casings. And so what he's able to determine is, you got your .380 casing, you got your 9mm casings. It was fired from, the .380 was fired from one gun, the 9mm was fired from one gun. But the .45 caliber casings, they were all fired from one gun. The 7.62 casings were all fired from one gun. So as relates to this case, officers are looking for a .45 caliber handgun and a 7.62. The other forensic officers, they have taken Mr. Freeman's car to the garage, and they're examining it. And so on the hood, you've got this shot on the hood. And they also put directional rods into these holes in the car. And so the story that it tells is that there is a shot at the front of the car, towards the car. There's a shot coming in the side of the car, and then there's two shots here in the back windows as the car proceeds on. And then lastly, this shot here at the very end, which shows the direction that bullet took. And you can see here the direction these shots here across through the window. And so they're able to recover a bullet from the car and some fragments from the car. They're also able to recover some other fragments from some other vehicles in the neighborhood that were struck. And so again, based upon the examination of these bullets and bullet fragments, officers are looking for 7.62 assault rifle and a .45 caliber handgun. So, based upon officers' investigations, they're looking for this blue Altima. Now, this blue Altima is a rental car. The defendants did not rent the rental car, right? Because they're 14 and 15. Too young, you can't rent a rental car when you're 14 and 15, since you got no license. Officers with the Knoxville Police Department, Investigator Phil Jenks, is able to locate this blue Altima at the location where they left the blue Altima after the shooting. And that is behind this apartment complex at 2055 Washington. He locates it in the alley. And so instead of just scooping in and having the car towed, he watches it for a while because he wants to see if anyone returns to that car. Because we want to find out who's driving the car. Right? So he watches it for a while. Nobody returns to the car. So he has the car towed to the impound lot so it can be processed. Now, about that same time, another investigator is trying to work to locate the defendants. And so the way they're going to get located is, he's going to apply for a search warrant. And so we talked about in WBIR about technology and everything. And so he's applying for a search warrant to get the ping location of Mr. Davis and Mr. Jordan's cell phone. And so he fills out the affidavit, he submits that affidavit to a judge and asks the judge for permission for us to get this information. And that's granted. So we get a search warrant for that. We get the records from AT&T, and an examination of those records revealed that both of their phones were right there at the crime scene from the shooting. And so that was something that was examined later. You're going to hear about a CAS report that the FBI created, which will show their phones there at the location. But more importantly, the ping location tells us where Mr. Davis and Mr. Jordan's phones are. And that's going to be at 1614, sorry about that, 1614 Cathedral. So, officers, so now we've got a couple things going on. We got the firearms expert who's looking at the casings, right? He's looking for a .762 and a firearm assault rifle and a .45 handgun. You've got this blue car in the garage waiting to be processed, and then you've got officers set up at 1614 Cathedral looking for the defendants. So the forensics unit comes in on February 16th, and they process this blue Altima. In the blue Altima, what they find, .45 caliber casing, .45 caliber casing, and that's confiscated. This is not like it is on TV. And so that officer rushes that to KPD so that investigator Brian Dalton can examine those two cases. He examines those two cases, and he concludes these two casings are fired from the same .45 caliber handgun, which is also fired from, which matches the casings there at the scene. And it's important. So you've got 9 casings at the scene, you got 2 casings in the car. So these 11 casings were all fired from the .45 caliber handgun. Also, what officers were able to do, you're going to learn about fingerprints. And so there are a whole bunch of conditions that need to be present in order for fingerprints to be left. You would think that just because I lay my hand here, my print's going to be there. Or because I'm touching the chair, the print's going to be there. No, that's not the case. But one of the best places to get a fingerprint is not on a handle, it's not on the steering wheel, it is right here on this rear view mirror. And officers were able to process that rear view mirror and get a print from the rear view mirror. They ran it through their system, and in their system it's called APHIS. APHIS has prints for adults. So if you're a juvenile, it's not going to be in the system. So, you got that going on. While officers are posted up here at 1614 Cathedral, looking for the defendants. You got an officer out back who sees a young African-American male come to the deck, and that young African-American male has a firearm. He cannot make the identification. He can't identify who it was. It's just that's what he sees, just because of the location he's at. Officers call for the individuals to come out of the house, and coming out of the house is Mr. Rashawn Jordan, DeAndre Davis. Also in the house was Mr. Davis's aunt and two young females. Mr. Jordan is taken into custody, and so is Mr. Davis, but Mr. Jordan, when he's taken into custody, remember Bill James, the guy who found that Altima? Well, Mr. Jordan has in his sock a key fob, and it's a Nissan key fob. And so Investigator Jennings, after transporting them to the transporting, he takes that key fob, goes to the garage, and uses it, and it matches, opens, closes, locks, unlocks the Nissan Altima. So at this point in time, we've got the circumstantial evidence that connects Mr. Jordan to the Altima. His print was later on, we're going to take his prints, and his print, since it's a juvenile, takes his print, it matches the print on the rearview mirror. The key fob in the sock, circumstantially is connecting him to the Altima. He's with Mr. Jordan. They're together. We got Jeremy Hines, who was identified, Mr. Davis in the car. So we've got him. Now what we want to do is we want to search the house. And so again, before we can search the house, officers got to come back, swear out a search warrant, swear it out, submit it to the judge, and the judge authorizes the search warrant. So officers search the house. In the living room, officers are able to recover 2 cell phones, and that's not a surprise, right? Because the cell phones are pinging, and so we expect to find 2 iPhones there at the house. And so officers find 2 cell phones in the living room, and that's going to be right past the area where Mr. Jordan and Mr. Davis had to come out of the house. Also in the living room, officers find this Glock 37 45 gap box. Inside the box, there are 3 magazines. The capacity for these magazines is going to be 10 rounds. And so you firearms folks know that when we're talking about a gun that's fully loaded, you're going to have how many ever the clip's going to hold, but you can also have 1 more in the gun. So that's going to be your 11 bullets, right? And remember, this scene, we've got 9 casings and 2 casings in the car. Back on the deck, officers find this assault rifle underneath the table. And so what we're going to talk about is there's an upper receiver, and this is the lower receiver. And so the upper receiver is going to be what's going to leave the impression on the casings, and then the barrel is going to leave the impression on the bullets. On the other side, when you turn it over, you got this sticker here, and this sticker is an Ethica sticker. Ethica is not a type of gun. It's a brand of underwear. So it's a sticker from some underwear they have put on the gun. This is important right here. And so look at this image, and you can tell that it's bronze at the top, and the lower receiver is black. In the back bedroom, so in the back bedroom, so far we've found here in the living room the Glock 45, the gun case in the living room. On the back deck, we found the Tennessee Arms Company firearm with a magazine containing 12 live rounds with the Ethica sticker. In this bedroom here, we're going to find this AR pistol. This is going to be a 5.56. But what's important about this is it's an assault rifle, and so you've got the upper receiver and then the lower receiver. And this lower receiver is bronze. And so the thing about the lower receiver is that it's interchangeable. And Investigator Dalton will explain all that to you. In the bedroom, underneath this North Face jacket, officers find 45 caliber Gat Glock pistol. And if you turn it over, it's got a laser sight on it. And you see the sticker? The sticker's on it, right? So this evidence is collected. Now, what you want to do is you want to process it because you want to see if there's any prints on the gun, if there's any DNA on the gun. The thing about fingerprints is not going to tell you when the fingerprints were left, right? I mean, I can touch this, touch this computer here. If my prints are on that computer, it's not going to tell you when I left my prints there, right? It's just going to tell you at some point in time during the life of this computer and during my life, I touched it. Same things with DNA. If I leave my DNA on the computer, it's not going to tell you when I left my DNA on the computer. Just that at some point in time during my lifespan and this computer's lifespan, there's DNA. Well, I'm saying all that to say that we processed it. Couldn't look at any prints. The DNA, it was like a whole bunch of people's DNA that we could not identify inside. We're still going to call that expert because we want you to hear it. Let you know we tried. So, the DNA was taken back, the firearms were taken back to the Knoxville Police Department. Investigator Dawson examined these guns and he determined that those 45 caliber casings from the crime scene and from the car were fired from this gun. The 7.62 casings at the scene were fired from the gun. Also, during the search of the house, in addition to collecting evidence, they also took photographs in different rooms, in different areas. One of the photographs they took is in this bathroom. And so, be mindful of the sink. There's a blue shirt here, toothpaste, whatever that is, this commode, plunger, or brush, or whatever. Mr. Jordan at the time was photographed, and Mr. Davis at the time was photographed. So, also in front of the house would be this Ford Focus, so blue Ford Focus. And so it was processed, and the important thing to remember about the Ford Focus is that you'll see that it's got a odorizer or deodorizer, whatever. It's yellow. You see it again here hanging. And the thing about this car is that the stitching in the car and the seats is red. So, we've got the firearms that were used to kill Mr. Freeman. We've got the car that was used by the shooters to kill Mr. Freeman. But we want to know if there is any way, any other evidence that might help us show who was in possession of these guns. We tried DNA, we tried fingerprints, looked for eyewitnesses. What's left? Cell phones. But before we look at cell phones, got to get a search warrant. So we get the search warrant, affidavit, search warrants approved. And looking through the search warrant, looking through the cell phones. Looking through Mr. Davis' cell phone, there's a conversation that starts on February 10th, 2021, that leads to February 11th. Because remember, our murder date is February 12th. And there's a conversation with somebody else named ABK Flex. And they're talking about, ABK Flex is talking about selling a 9mm. And so Mr. Davis responds, I've got a 45. Oh, okay, that's a 45. There's all kinds of 45s. On February 11th, on Mr. Davis's cell phone, there's a video of Mr. Jordan holding the 7.62 rifle. Now, in addition to getting a search warrant for their cell phones, We also got a search warrant for Mr. Jordan's iPad. And here are some of the photographs. Again, Mr. Jordan with the 7.62. Mr. Jordan, 7.62. Mr. Davis with the 45. And again, you see that sticker on the side. On Mr. Jordan's phone that night, on February 11th, and that was Mr. Jordan with the 7.62 rifle, and Mr. Davis driving. So then when we went to February 12th, Mr. Davis posts this picture on one of the social media sites. Again, remember that sticker on the side of the labor site? Because remember now it's the day of the murder. On February 12th, the day of the murder, the video of Mr. Davis and Mr. Jordan in the focus.
Got that nigga in a bag. Fuck you talking about? Got that right.
Remember the red stitching in the seats. So we got the two of them in a car in the focus. That same day, February 12th, at 12:42 p.m., Mr. Jordan posts this picture to Snapchat, and that's going to be the picture of the 7.62 with the bronze lower receiver, right? You can tell because of that right there. And remember the Ethica sticker? And so this is at 12:42. And so when we're looking at these cell phone extractions, there's two things to remember. Some of these cell phone extractions, the time that they give you information on is called UTC. And so if it says UTC -5, then that's just the correct time. If it says UTC +0, we've got to subtract 5 hours. And so just keep that in mind when we're talking with the expert. But in this case, we've got the correct time. That's at 12:42 p.m. Remember, our killing happens at 3:48. On February 12, 2021, again, the murder date, at 1:02, Mr. Jordan sends a text to his friend, LaRock, and says, this is Wax. Who did you say had the 7.62 bullets? At 1:02, a few seconds later, LaRock responds back, I got you some. And Mr. Jordan at 1:02 states, bet L&K, let me know when I can get them. And LaRock responds back, I'm already knowing. And this is at 1:03. Remember, 3:38. That same day, we know that Mr. Jordan is still in the car because he takes this Snapchat picture at 2:00 p.m. So, again, when we're talking about our cell phones, the cache location, whether you know it or not, is tracking your movement a lot of times. And so we were able to get the cache location from Mr. Jordan's phone. We couldn't get it from Mr. Davis's phone. His phone was open. But the cache location from Mr. Jordan's phone shows Mr. Jordan basically tracks the video from Austin East. You know, that the blue car having the incident with the Honda Accord. Well, that's what you're seeing over here. And it's got the time over here. We'll try to enlarge it a little bit more when it comes time to introduce it. And then it's showing how the car, because this is going to be, this is Claude Field, and this is going to be Austin East. And you're going to see how the car moves down, the cell phone moves down, That's Charlton. And then the cell phone takes off. Look how fast it goes. Crosses. And it stops on Washington Avenue. And what's interesting is that on Mr. Jordan's cell phone, that picture that we showed you of the apartment complex at 2055 came from his phone. He searched that address on his phone. He also put a note in his phone of like parked car, and he gives the location of 2055 Washington. So, and again, I keep saying remember, because it's all that time. Since we don't have an eyewitness who can say, I saw these two people shooting, this is the time. So, you know, the shooting takes place around 3:38. And so, after the shooting, Mr. Jordan gets a text from somebody who sends this image here. And this is the image, Mr. Freeman's arm outstretched. And a text that says, make sure that that's not man-man. And he responds, who, man, who? And they go back and forth. Well, this image is saved to his phone. Image is saved again at 4 o'clock. That video, remember the lady who calls 911? Remember I said that how she was after and she reported the scene, and you see Mr. Freeman's arm move a couple times? Well, that video was sent to Mr. Davis's phone, and it's saved.
Oh my God, where the fuck is they at talking about everybody in rap, bitch, keep wanting to do all that asking questions, just come on. I don't know his name, I don't think him on my Facebook, keep him. I don't think so. Oh, his child card. Oh my God. He hit the mailbox. Y'all, we trying to see who this is, y'all. Oh my God. Yeah, look, oh my God, oh my God. I'm not, damn, what is this mama name? Lord Jesus. It is one. Oh, his mama live on the corner. I forgot her name. No, this a boy, but his mama stay on the corner. Yo, look at this. Oh my God. Y'all pray for this little boy. Harvey, come on!
This video was received about 5:23 p.m. At 5:10. Mr. Jordan and Mr. Davis in the focus with the 7.62 and the 45. Back to Mr. Jordan's phone, that night he and Mr. Davis taking more pictures. So there's a series of pictures that Mr. Jordan's phone takes of Mr. Davis, but the thing about it is, if you look here, 45 is in the pocket. And then you got that red laser sight. Back to Mr. Davis's phone the next day. Now he's having a conversation on text now app. And he's trying to sell that 45 gap. And so he's talking to this person, and the person says, well, send me a picture of the gun. And so he takes pictures of the gun and sends it to whoever it is that's being willing to purchase it. And the guy says, no, never mind. He also takes a picture of the assault rifle. And so we're back to Mr. Jordan's phone on 213, again, showing the picture. On 215, they're back together again. And you see right here, driving around in the car with the assault rifle. Now, what you will also hear is that Mr. Freeman and Mr. George and Mr. Davis, Mr. Freeman didn't run in their group. They're not friends. But in looking through Mr. Jordan's and Mr. Davis's phones, there were images, because people had published different photographs of Mr. Freeman online when this happened. It was a sad occasion. And so we found a number of photographs of Mr. Freeman on their phones. So this is Mr. Jordan's phone. This picture was saved February 15th at 11:28 a.m. Also this news article, front page, 2/16 at 2:36 a.m. Just an image of Mr. Freeman outside of school with one of his buddies. Mr. Jordan's phone, 2/16 at 9:42 a.m. And now remember, 2/16, that's the day they're taken into custody. Remember that? And so officers, they arrived there at 1614 Cathedral. They're taken into custody by 11 o'clock. And so this is from Mr. Jordan's phone, 2/16 at 9:50 a.m. And so remember those photographs from the bathroom? That blue shirt. So that'll be a video that we'll show, but it's going to show you that blue shirt and then the gun. Also, Mr. Jordan's phone at 10:24. Because remember that officer who sees the young black male with no shirt on, comes out to the deck and with the firearm. Well, at 10:24 a.m., Mr. Jordan posts this picture on Snapchat, social media. And remember that ethical sticker. Looking back through Mr. Davis's phone, the math teacher, Miss Hayes, she was Mr. Freeman's math teacher, and after this happened, I mean, he literally had just walked out of the courtroom, out of her classroom. And so what her job was, as all the teachers, I guess she had to maneuver getting the kids out in the parking lot. So she was out in the parking lot when she heard the firearm shots, when she heard the gunshots happen. And so she makes this post on Facebook. She's not friends with Mr. Jordan or Mr. Davis. And so this is just a post talking about just how tragic this was. And how like 10 minutes before this happened, he was talking to me about an assignment. Mr. Davis has this post saved on his phone. At the conclusion of this case, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dillon and myself, we're going to stand back before you and ask that you hold Mr. Jordan and Mr. Davis accountable for their conduct on February 12, 2021. It is their conduct that caused the death of Stanley Freeman. It is because of Rashawn Jordan and DeAndre Davis that Stanley Freeman is dead. Mr. Freeman was doing absolutely nothing wrong. He was doing exactly what we want all 16-year-olds to do, and that is to go to school, take up your free time with either an after-school activity or work. You don't need to be running around here with all this free time. And that's what Mr. Freeman was doing. He messed up in math. He knew there were going to be consequences, and so he's trying to get some extra math work. So he can have his grades brought up, so he doesn't lose his car, because if he loses his car, he's going to lose his job. He's going to get broke. That's it. And he's rushing home change his clothes, he can go to work, but he couldn't outrun their bullets. And we're gonna ask you to find him guilty for their conduct on February 12, 2021.
General.